Welcome to Boil the Frog Slowly, a radio program that goes where corporate media stops, where each week we ask the questions, are politics hazardous to your health? Are the decisions and incremental changes being made by government and industry creating health problems? What are they? Why don't you know about them? What can you do about it? Not only do we ask the questions, we furnish answers with unparalleled documentation, research, studies, and guests from around the globe with proof that unequivocally show that yes, politics are hazardous to your health, and you had better be informed before it's too late. Boil the Frog Slowly. A cute name? No. It's what's happening right now to you and me and the rest of the world as we placidly float in a slowly simmering pot of subtle changes. And those who hold the recipe to this agenda count on the fact that we won't notice the heat until we're sufficiently boiled, unable to resist. I'm Pat.
And I'm Sebastian.
And today we're stirring the pot. Thanks for joining us. Well, Sebastian, we have got a very exciting guest today, yeah?
Absolutely, I'm riveted.
He's riveted. We have Alison Heath, and she will be known to our listeners or anyone that's interested in this topic as the host of the EMF Summit. Some of the most important folks in this field. She has interviewed them one-on-one, most recently the Barry Trower interview, which is absolutely awesome. And we're here today to discuss and find out how Alison came to take the helm here when it comes to these important interviews, and then we'll dig deep and see what she knows that we need to know. So welcome to the show, Alison.
Yeah, welcome, Alison.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
No, thank you. We usually like to start, Alison, just getting a little peek into who you are and why it is that you do what you do. So maybe just give us a little background.
Well, I like to play. So that's why I do what I do. And I have an online brand as Alison Heath, the Longevity Rescuer. I'm fascinated by health, what we can do to turn situations around. I cured myself from 2 incurable conditions, saved my leg from amputation, and, all these different things. I was a little party animal and going down probably the wrong path. And I was able to turn my health around completely. So for over 20 years, I haven't even had Tylenol in my medicine cabinet. Nothing. No painkillers, nothing, except for whole foods, superfoods, and all this type of thing. And I know that nature intended us to be vibrantly healthy. So everything I do is in that direction. And recently, when I became EHS, electromagnetically hypersensitive, I went, oh my God, what's happening? And it was so weird for me because I'm so used to being super energetic, vibrantly healthy with, a sharp, quick focus and so on, and it was all gone. And I really noticed it quickly, and I knew that something was seriously wrong. So serendipity happened, and everything lined up and coincided that I found out exactly what it was right away, or very quickly.
Yeah, tell us exactly what it was that was doing it.
Well, I had moved to a condo, which was right smack dab in downtown Kelowna, British Columbia, which is a very pretty, beautiful city. And I was living there near a bird sanctuary right by the lake and thinking that I was in 7th heaven because my condo was separated from the other condos by an electrical storage room. It was way off to the side, and then there was a stairwell and stuff, and it was very quiet. And I thought, oh, this is just beautiful. I was, have a degree in computer science. I've been working in the field for ages and ages. In the last 4 years, building this online brand, I was on the computer hours a day, and never thought anything about it. I thought, I'm not going to bother with a landline because I'd moved there. I moved to BC a couple of years ago from Montreal, and I had bought an iPhone at the time of my move. Before that, I sort of resisted cell phones. And so I was making an app for this Easy Natural facelift program on facial exercises. So I had this little iPhone, and I thought, I'm going to just use my iPhone. Why should I bother with a landline? So I had just the iPhone, and when I came in to get the highest possible internet connection put into my place, the guy that put it in, he said, I just love this building. It's brand new, and it's all wired beautifully. And, it's so easy for us to put it in. And the modem went right inside the wall. And, the whole building was just designed for it. And I thought, I just love all this technology. I was really happy with it all. I didn't even know I'd heard about electromagnetic sensitivity, but I thought, it's probably psychosomatic, whatever, and I didn't pay much attention to it. Well, things started to happen for me, and I just started first to get headaches, and I thought, headaches? It was so weird. I hadn't had a headache for 20, 30, 20 years at least, and I thought, wow. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my heart would be pounding. Literally, I thought there was a thunderstorm. And it was my heart pounding in my neck and in my ears. And I checked my pulse. My usual resting pulse is really low. It's between 57 and 65. All of a sudden, my pulse was 85 beats a minute. I went oh my God, this is sleeping. And then I started to feel really as if I had a vice around my chest. And it was just kind of like it was, one of those things that grip things that you can tighten. And it was like it was being tightened and tightened and tightened. There's sort of a whole pain around my chest. And I started losing my balance. I had this tall wooden footboard at the bottom of my bed. I smashed into it so many times that I now have a permanent indent in my thigh with a sort of slight discoloration from bruising it so badly. And then I'd start looking in the mirror. Well, start looking in the mirror. I'd get up in the morning and I'd look in the mirror as per usual. And I could see myself aging in front of my eyes. And like I said, I have this online program, the Easy Natural Facelift. And I'm looking, and I mean, oh my God, I'm the worst example of this. I'm not the poster child anymore. I went oh no. So then it started where I couldn't remember what I was doing. I'd head to the kitchen, and those sort of what they call senior moments where you just can't remember something?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was getting those a lot. And with my degree in computer science and so on, I've used so many different softwares for so many different years, and I wear a lot of hats with my another summit I host, Your Vibrant Health Secrets. So I was trying to remember how to use software, trying to remember my password to get into my email. I couldn't remember anything. I'm looking at it, and I'm sort of going, what am I supposed to do with this machine? Looking at a computer that I've used every day forever.
Oh my.
And I thought, something's really weird. So those were the symptoms that started alerting me. I thought I was having a heart attack or a stroke.
And how did you connect the dots?
Well, that's another story. I was doing a youthing workshop in my building. And this building had this beautiful lounge, recreate party room, or whatever you call it. And I was going to show juicing, natural juicing, do demos on it and so on for the people attending. So I went to the organic food co-op to buy my food. And I'd put up a poster there about the youthing shop. And there was this woman started talking to me, and I said, oh, well, why don't you come to my workshop? And I showed her the poster, and she said, oh, I'd love to, but I can't go into that building. It's too dirty. And I went, dirty? This is a new, beautiful luxury condo. What are you talking about? Anyway, she said, it's the electricity. It's too much dirty electricity and too much Wi-Fi. So I can't go in there. She said, I'm sensitive to this kind of stuff. And I said, oh, well, and she said, and she was telling me all this stuff. She seemed so brilliant. I said, why don't you come and talk? And she said, well, I can't go into the building. And I said, well, geez, people need to hear what you're saying. And she said, well, I'll come for 10 minutes. So she came in and she sat down for 10 minutes and she spoke and then she left. And I listened to what she had to say, and it was like, oh boy, all the light bulbs went on. Just bing, 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 connected the dots immediately. And so I had somebody come over with a meter and measure my apartment to see what was actually going on. And this meter, I think it's called an HFC 35. It's like a $900 meter. It's a really good one. They came in, they measured, and it was like the lowest spot was about 1940, and then it went way over 2,000, which it measures just as one at that point because it maxes out. And so every single area in that little condo I was in was over 2,000. I mean, it was unbelievable. So now where I'm living, the bedroom that I sleep in averages at 1 and peaks at 6. So that's the difference. My highest EMF radiation in the bedroom I'm in right now is 6. There it was over 2,000.
And are we talking microwatts per meter squared or millivolts?
No, it's microwatts per meter squared.
Okay. Too bad you can't get that bedroom down to 0.
Well, I probably might be able to. I don't know, and I'm just not sure. So right now I'm exploring. So the reason, okay, when we get back to my raison d'etre, okay, why I do what I do, the reason I'm doing the EMF Summit is because I had to learn, and I had to learn fast. And I wanted to learn from the people that knew. Because, I mean, it's like a minefield. There's so much stuff out there. You just don't know where to turn or what's true or what's right or what's wrong. I mean, it's crazy. So I got out of Dodge, I moved in with that lady that had helped me and to realize what was going on. And I went there and I stayed there for a few months while I kind of detoxed my body from all the radiation that I had in me. And it was sort of interesting, because they had Stetzer filters, they had Faraday cages, they had like a magnetical pad they were trying, and everything. And they had tried 64 houses when they had to move, and finally found one that was relatively low. It was about 25 or 26, and under the Faraday cage it was about 6 to 8. So, it was fairly clean.
What a blessing you ran into this person, because if you didn't find that information out through word of mouth, you'd probably still be chasing your tail.
I know.
Well, you and I shared a story because Sebastian's kind of the person for me as your friend was for you, because I was experiencing those same types of symptoms that you were having. And one day he came to speak at an event where I think he said he was only going to stay for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I told you, I'm like, I see this guy standing up there and I thought it was some sort of a weird beekeeper. He has this, the shielding hood and everything. I'm like, who is this person? And what does he have to say? And after his 10-minute conversation, my dots got connected, and similar to you, that's a very similar path. And so many times we need that person or voice or whatever to show up for us to help us connect those dots. So maybe you're one of the dot connectors for all the folks that you're doing these interviews for.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? And I just think that, Pat, you and I are just like absolutely so fortunate.
Yes.
I mean, it's like little guardian angels or something, because just to be able to have the dots connected is so important. And so many physicians are writing to me, and they're saying, thank you for this summit, because we have, I have so many patients coming to me, and I don't know anything about this topic, and I need to help them. So, physicians aren't being taught about this. It's kind of like, a lot of the there's 5 physicians in my family amongst my cousins and whatnot and so on, and they're taught, their information that they're taught is basically put together by the pharmaceutical industry, and they're not knowing about this information. So it's really been downplayed so much in the media and so on, and research. I mean, people researching it to try to get conclusive studies on it. They're having their funding pulled. They're having smear campaigns. Their houses are burned down. They're trying to get fired. I mean, it's like, ooh, you stick your head out, and it's heavy-duty stuff. So, Dave Stetzer, who was working for the military, he had a degree in electronics, and one of the things that he did after he retired was he opened a company to make these filters. But before opening the company to make the filters, he started going around with Dr. Graham to go and see what was going on with these farmers and so on, where the cows weren't giving milk, where the farmers' wives were getting so depressed when they went into the barn, and so on. And so he found out about stray voltage and stuff like this. He started working, helping people, and he became so sensitive, so hypersensitive from it. Now, they use the word hypersensitive because everyone is sensitive. They just don't necessarily know it. Mm-hmm. But when you're hypersensitive, you actually have symptoms. Well, his symptoms are that his chest breaks out into these boils, like hives that bleed. Oh. And it happens really, really quickly. So he was called in by this doctor's wife to go to her house and talk to her husband, this doctor, and she said, bring a lot of reports and everything because, he's a doctor, he wants to see proof, etc., and, the paperwork. So he went over and he did this hour-long presentation. And during the presentation, this doctor had brought his buddies, so there were 3 doctors there. He said, I'm going to have to stop this presentation and either clean up the dirty electricity now or I'll have to leave. And he said, because, I'm very electromagnetically hypersensitive and I'm starting to get ill. And they looked at his shirt, and he was wearing a white shirt, and it was getting covered with blood.
Oh, wow, there's proof for you.
Well, the doctors all had their theories as to why this was happening, blah, blah, blah. So he started to put filters, the Graham-Stetzer filters, into the plugins, and the last room that they did was the kitchen. So they had to move out the microwave, and under the microwave, it was just coated with dust, because obviously the housewife or housekeeper or whoever couldn't move it to clean it. And the doctor said, oh my God, how fast does this work? And Dave said, it works right away. Why? And he said, because I have to have an inhaler every time I'm around dust. And if this hadn't worked, I would be like, not able to breathe right now. I'd be having a major asthma attack. And he said, this is amazing. Amazing, because I'm able to stand here beside all this dust. And so anyway, all 3 doctors went to their clinics and put in the filters and cleaned up the dirty electricity, but they didn't tell any of the other doctors in the building. They didn't want to be poo-pooed or looked at like they were woo-woo or whatever, They were afraid to say something. I mean, that's how insane it is. People are afraid to speak up. It's nuts. And the thing is that really gets me, because I'm literally a nobody. I have no background in this field whatsoever. I'm just a curious, concerned person who wanted to help herself and started reading all these books while I was at these people's homes. I started reading all these books, and then I called up the authors and put together this summit. And one person, would put me in touch with another person, and that's how I got to interview all these top scientists. But I really was doing it kind of a self-serving way because I wanted to learn. I already had a platform from your Vibrant Health Secrets, so I had an audience. And I thought, well, I'll share what I'm learning with other people. If this is happening to me, and I've got this super diet, and I'm into all this exercises to get my human growth hormone kicked in and all this stuff, imagine what it's doing to other people that, aren't into health and superfoods. So I wanted to share it.
Well, it's an excellent and effective approach, and kind of sounds similar to what Pat and I went through as well. We just kind of felt the same way, that we need to share as we go while we're learning, because we're in the same boat as you. We're suffering from it, and we're trying to figure out how to help ourselves, and in the meantime help everybody else.
Nice.
Yeah. And what I like about what you're doing, Alison, is because you are suffering from it, you kind of take the gloves off as you enter the ring on this. And I like that on your interviews. I mean, you're not approaching these interviews as kind of laissez-faire, like, oh, well, maybe it could be bad. Nobody knows. We'll go ahead and just talk about it and present the facts. You're in there like, yeah, this is bad. I know this is bad. Now let's talk about what's really going on.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But, it does ruffle feathers. And this is one of the things that Ole Johansson said to me. He said, we've really got to get on board together with this. And the thing is that, like, I'm just, I'm the kind of person that jumps and then looks later. So the thing is that I didn't even realize that I would be attracting any attention to myself. I just figured, that I was a conduit or curator of all this information for these other people. And the thing is that, boy, you get nailed from every direction. Everybody, there's all these different little factions and so on. So there's the people that are like industry trolls or whatever they call them, that are out to get you in the firing line and discredit everybody, etc. And then there are people that in different areas, that have their particular part of electromagnetic fields and so on that they want to be brought forward, and they want their point of view and so on. So there seems to be like some egos involved and some factions that are not in a cohesive resonance with each other on the whole problem. And this is like the divide and conquer thing. You don't want that happening. And so, one of the things that Ole Johansson, he wrote a great letter recently, and he said, we all need to get on board on the same side. We all need to, like, work together on this, and to define the term and use, like, EHS, electromagnetic hypersensitivity as the term. Not, change and put whatever, just keep one word for it, and so on. And his work, incidentally, because of his research, Sweden has designated electromagnetic hypersensitivity as a disability. They've recognized it.
Yeah, that's huge.
That is huge. That'd be awesome. People
that's his research.
Ole Johansson is a saint.
Yeah, but he may be a saint, but he's going under hell and high water from where he works.
Yes, he has.
He had to throw out a whole pile of research, 2 big filing cabinets of research, because they moved him to a smaller office.
Oh.
Well, they've just done it again. The next step is out the door. I mean, this is not good. Not good at all. But it's so common. It really is. It just, you look at Dr. Henry Lai and the work that he didn't even mention cell phones. It just happens that it's the same frequency that cell phones use. And the research that he did with it, he discovered these double-strand DNA breaks. Well, when those double strands break, they're not repairable.
Yep.
And incidentally, I thought that single ones were all repairable. Barry Trower told me, no, they're not.
Right, I heard that.
Yeah, so, I mean, this gets passed down by generation to generation. And then, we started having some real serious problems. Mm-hmm. And like what happened to Henry Lai was Motorola, they leaked one of their emails, and they said, well, we think that we've war-gamed Henry Lai enough. And they tried to have him fired, and, all his research money, grant money, gone, period. And, I know how much they work to get their grant money. They have to really make a concentrated effort with their proposals and everything. Well, there isn't any grant money for this anymore. Now, Dr. Martha Herbert, who's going to be on the EMF Summit, she's doing research on autism and how autism is, like, exploding into outer space and how it's so related to all the Wi-Fi rollouts especially in schools and all this stuff. And she's at Harvard University. Well, she's not getting her funding from the university. She's getting her funding from an angel investor who happens to have a few autistic children himself, and so on. And he's cleaned up his home to be perfect. I mean, it's just like, it's free of electromagnetic radiation because he knows how much it affects people. So it's really interesting, You need to have an angel investor, basically, if you're going to do research these days.
Alison, did you hear about the recent European conference that was just held on EHS and trying to tackle the problem of EHS people in the future in Europe being excluded from society, and how Ali Johansson was one of the guest speakers?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Did you see what his main message was? That I believe he's calling for EHS to be more regarded as a disease.
Mm-hmm. And it is.
Yeah.
The thing is, people are saying that it's like an allergy, but it's much more than an allergy. The reason that they might say it's an allergy is because it does create all of these histamines being produced in the body. The level of histamines are so much higher. But, it's doing so much more than that. It's like really whacking the whole central nervous system.
Well, yeah, if you're figuring that you've got DNA breaks that are now affecting future generations, it's not an allergy and it's not a disease. I mean, you're basically destroying humanity, and I don't know what you call that.
Well, just look at what Barry Trower is saying in his paper, which you can get by Googling it, or you can get it off of the EMF Summit.
It's called a Wi-Fi, a thalidomide in the making, and who cares? And you can find it on Alison's EMF Summit.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that what he's saying in that document is that we have inhibited or whatever the reproductive capability by 57.7%.
Yeah. 57.7%. Now, there's a number that the media should be hammering like they did Romney's 49% or whatever.
And then, Alison, didn't Barry Trower go on to say that in 2 generations, we will only have 1/8 of the healthy child population?
Yeah, the implications of that are really huge. And when he was talking in the interview with me, he was saying, think about it. The countries that are banning Wi-Fi now and banning children under 16 from having cell phones and so on, those are the countries that are going to be strong in the long run. Those are the ones that are going to take over.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Great point.
Because we're not going to have a workforce. We're not going to have anybody to pay our pensions and all this stuff. Forget it. We're not going to have. He said we're not going to have the bus drivers. Mm-hmm. We're going to be totally lacking in our whole infrastructure if we even live that long, frankly.
Absolutely.
And Alison, all of those symptoms that you said you were exposing, you couldn't even remember your password. I had the exact same experience at my job at the hospital. I have so many friends and people I know with the same symptoms. You can't tell me that this is an epidemic throughout the world where Wi-Fi is being used.
You were working in a hospital. You were like a sitting duck.
Yeah.
Hospitals are one of the worst places. Yeah, fried duck. They're really heavy-duty places. I can't imagine anybody going to a hospital to get better. Because, they are just everything's wireless, and they have all these deck phones and so on, and the thing is they have like transmitters in the walls of the hospital.
I had hospital staff, people working up at administration levels, coming into our office, for blood work or what have you, and they're describing having all these terrible migraines and hormone problems and thyroid trouble. And then when you get to talking, they're describing how they just put the Wi-Fi transmitters over their head, right over their desk.
But, it's kind of, if we step back for a second, we even look at the broader picture. Okay, when we look at the chemtrails that are, all you have to do is look up, and you're going to see those big, long...
That's for sure.
Absolutely.
...out of the plane. Okay, those weren't there before.
Nope. Yeah, it's like tic-tac-toe in the sky every day.
Yeah, and I saw one today that just blew my mind over Spain, where it was every 4 feet there was one, all going in a straight line in the same direction. I mean, it was like
Wow.
amazing. I've never seen anything like that. But the thing is, those particles are containing nanoparticles of aluminum, strontium, lead,
Barium.
Yep.
and the aluminum and the lead and all this stuff, it lodges in our brain. So even if we stay indoors, it's still going to come in through the...
And it's going into our food.
Exactly, everywhere.
Even if you're buying organic.
Yes, unless it's grown in a greenhouse, but even then, So it's really tough. But that in itself makes us little antennas, because all that heavy metals in our brain, and then it just attracts more of the EMF.
Absolutely. And when you're blasting the blood-brain barrier with the cell phone to your ear constantly and opening up that barrier, and now you're allowing all of the chemicals and the toxic chemicals within your body that we're gleaning from the chemtrails that they're spraying on us, yeah, you can see that that's a distinct problem.
It's a perfect storm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then if we look at GMOs,
Yep.
okay, there's another case in point, where we can be eating GMO corn, we're eating an ear of corn, and that corn is creating its own little pesticide factory inside our gut. And so our guts are becoming little pesticide factories.
Yeah, and it's not just if you're eating an ear of corn. I mean, it's in the bread, the cereals, every product.
Every product.
Yeah. So you really have to understand that you're getting bombarded from every single direction. And the electromagnetic radiation that we're experiencing now, that is growing exponentially, the G4, and now they've rolled out G5, and so on. And these are things that I used to love. I was like, oh my God, bring it on, give me faster interest.
Let's talk about that 4G, Alison, because your recent Barry Trower interview really revealed a lot of just absolute life-saving information on 4G.
Yeah, 4G is heavy duty shit, if you'll excuse the expression. It's really tough stuff, because the thing is, it is a combination of pulsed frequencies that have together never been tested on humanity.
Yeah, Barry said that they're creating a new waveform or waveforms that have never been known to man, never ever been tested in any past trials or studies. And for Barry Trower to say that is pretty huge, because this man's been living and breathing this science for his whole life. So if this man is saying we're now being exposed to waveforms never before known to man, that's where you need to stand up and listen, because your kids are getting exposed to this in school.
Well, we're being tested right now. We are the test kitchen.
I wouldn't call it testing. I think that's being too easy on the bad guys. They know what they're doing.
And they do.
Very well.
Absolutely.
Very well said, yeah.
I'm being sent so many books and so on, and one of the books that I was sent by Dave Stetzer was translated from Czechoslovakian in 1970. And it has pages and pages and pages and pages of studies on microwave sickness. Studies, okay, that were already done. And this is going back, they were doing studies in the 30s and so on. They have known about this forever. Okay, this is like totally known. Mm-hmm. And they're keeping it hidden from the general public because, well, God knows. I mean, there's so many different theories, right, with population control and all that stuff. But, for whatever their reasons are, it's not coming out to the foreground. People are not knowing it. And, the tragedy is, like Dr. Magda Havas was telling me on the EMF Summit on the interview, she's saying that they make products now, because everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, and G4 is not, like, it's open. It's an opened frequency. So anybody can use it for anything. It's not regulated. So these little diapers that they're making for babies that have a radio transmitter in them, and your phone rings if your baby's diaper's wet.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my God.
A pacifier for a baby, a little sus that has a transmitter in it. And if your baby has a fever or something, it just constantly sends the temperature to your phone. You know, so you can get a reading on your baby all the time. I mean, this, if you consider that, you know, little children, because they don't have the myelin sheath intact yet, and so on, and Dr. Blank explained this to me properly, which I'm not sure I really got it all, but, you know, it's not that they have more water per se than adults, it's that they don't have the lipids and so on to protect them, to protect their brain and so on.
Well, I write in Barry Trower's thalidomide paper, which I am cheating. I have it in front of me. This isn't from memory.
He says there's more water in them.
Well, he's saying that it takes 22 years for the myelin sheath to develop, to build its 122 layers.
Yep, and the brain, too, he talks about it takes a long time for
brain takes 20 years. The blood-brain barrier requires 18 months to form, and bones require 28 years to develop. The immune system requires 18 years to develop.
So what the heck are we doing giving little babies these gadgets? You know, putting a baby monitor into the crib of a baby or beside the baby's crib, you know, that's pulsing electromagnetic radiation constantly. And, you know, the thing that really surprised me, I can't remember, I guess it was a Lander who I was interviewing, and he was saying that cordless phones, okay, I didn't know that cordless phones were like having your own cell tower right beside your bed. You know, the base of the cordless phone is like this little cell tower. I didn't know that. But so then I switched, of course, when I found out, to a corded landline. But I found out from him that not all of those are safe either. You have to look on the bottom of your landline and see if it says DECT. If it says DECT, then you've got to know that you've got a little antenna there.
Oh, more than little. DECT phones are one of the nastiest radiation sources that you can find. They are lethal.
And what's frightening about this is now we're into wireless medicine. Everything is heading in that direction where everything's wearable, where you've got these little tattoo chips that are implantable so that, you know, we know if your blood pressure's going up or if you've walked enough today or if you're thirsty. And everyone's buying into this.
You know, it really is astounding. For example, Google Glass.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, this just really disturbs me so much because young people are paying $1,800 to buy this Google Glass, and, you know, for a lark. Physicians are using Google Glass to do operations so that they can be in communication with other physicians across the globe, you know, to help them with the operation, and so on and so on and so on. You know, the worst part of it is that, you know, the very people that are supposed to be helping people,
right,
the physicians and so on, they are the most highly exposed and so on.
And they're buying right into it. They are drinking the Kool-Aid. They're just chugging it down.
You cannot talk to the healthcare groups. I've tried to. Just last night I was talking to a group of pharmacists and was talking about this, and they all looked at me like I was out of my mind.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's kind of like you and I were talking, Pat, and you said, you know, it's funny, Alison, because both of us, we had to be affected by it before we kind of woke up.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what's happening. People really need to be affected before they wake up. But the thing is that they are being affected and they don't necessarily know it.
Yes.
Dr. Havis was telling me that, you know, so many people that she works with are addicted to their cell phones.
Absolutely.
Their colleagues at the University of Trent and so on, they're addicted. So if they go out somewhere and they forget their cell phone, it's like a withdrawal. Mm-hmm. You know, they get really concerned. We now have childhood dementia. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's effects similar to Alzheimer's happening in children.
Yeah.
They have camps now where children can go, which are sort of like rehab camps and so on, to help children get off of these electronic gadgets. We have dinner parties. You know, my life partner who passed away, who incidentally had phones everywhere, decked phones everywhere, beside the bathtub, everywhere. Anyway, he went to Italy for a family dinner, and there was, you know, it was like a family reunion he was putting together sort of thing, and there was, I don't know, maybe 20 people at the dinner table in this restaurant, and everybody was on their cell phones. He was appalled. Yep. So he borrowed his daughter's cell phone and phoned his grandson at the table.
Exactly, yeah. People texting each other across the table.
I know. Insane. So we literally have lost our human bonding capability. We don't know. Young people don't know how to communicate with each other. And, you know, remember the days when we used to ignore each other with books? Mm-hmm. You know, that's not happening anymore. People don't know how to read.
That's true.
And recently somebody, 3 different sources sent me 3 different articles on a virus that's making people stupid. And of the 90 subjects that they were using to test this, 40 had it. And, you know, this is a virus that hasn't been seen before. But they describe it as making people stupid. So what happens is that, you know, this could be, don't forget, as Barry Trower so aptly put it in the interview with me, he said, if I wanted to, I could smuggle in some biological weapons that would kill all your forests in Canada. Mm-hmm. And nobody would know. I'd just be able to get that through the customs without any problem. And then I could, you know, take a drone or go in a plane or whatever and just sprinkle it over your forest. And then when I got back home, I could, you know, target it with my microwave radiation and bring it all alive.
Yeah, he said it's very cheap, it's very easy, and he could shoot that beam, bounce it off the ionosphere right from his country to the other country. That's how easy it is.
Yep, and so he could, you know, kill the forests, or he could kill the wheat, or whatever, you know, or he could do whatever he wanted. And the thing is that this stupid virus that has shown up, there is no reason in the world why that couldn't be in the chemtrails that are going down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, it seems that human beings are quite expendable. And one of the rabbit holes that I went down after initially speaking, because I spoke to Barry on the phone a few times before the actual interview, you know, setting it up. And I was just like, astounded. So, you know, when he talks in that paper about, you know, he said, if you don't believe this, you know, don't believe me, check it out yourself. He said, check out some of the things like MK Ultra, check out Artichoke, check out, you know, and he goes on and he lists these different projects, all those things. So I went, really? Let's find out. And I was just absolutely shocked. I started listening to these YouTube videos about these MK Ultra survivors, they call them. And I'm listening to this woman speaking, and I'm going like, oh my God, this is like horrendous. How horrible. 4 years old, and she's so sexually abused and everything, and it creates a split personality and all this, and she gets like a photographic memory as a byproduct of this personality split. She's being used as like a spy and so on, and I'm listening to her. I listened to like about 2 or 3 of her things, and then I'm listening to one where she says, yes, I'm ready now to say who I am publicly. And she said, I'm Sandy Ford, Gerald Ford's daughter. And I went, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And she said, you know, my handler was Bob Hope. And I just couldn't get over this, you know. She said, and I was trained to do sexual things and so on at the Playboy Mansion by bunnies and stuff like this. Hugh Hefner's in on this. And I'm going, what? I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. And, you know, all of this sort of, like I say, the rabbit hole or this can of worms or whatever that's opened by just trying to learn about this stuff, for a while it really threw me for a loop. You know, I just couldn't get enough of it. I was just like listening, learning everything I could possibly learn about all of this stuff. And then I just went, okay, you know, let's not go into the fear. Let's not go into the horror. Let's not buy into all of the red flag operations and everything, you know, the terrorist plots that are put out there, set up and staged to have us willingly give away our liberties. Instead of doing that, let's focus on my own personal purpose, which has always been to stay connected to the divinity within, my source energy, and just bask in grounded joy and bliss, and just experience, stay connected to that love. Because, even when everybody was dying around me, I was losing all these people, I was in grief, I was crying and everything, underneath I could feel this well of joy. And that's that same well of joy, that's that same nature, what nature intended for us, that same source energy is what intended us to be vibrantly healthy. And so it's just like all this stuff is like pushing our ball down into the barrel, and yet it wants to pop up naturally.
That's the truth down there that you're feeling. That's the truth that wants to pop that ball back up out of the barrel.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be on that vibration. I'd rather stay in that vibration. And I really believe that if we can stay connected to source energy and stay in that love, that, if the good outweighs the bad, it's all good. And it's going to come from people raising their vibration. It's going to come from people, bringing themselves together. As Oli said, instead of skip the politics, we don't need politics. We need to have cohesiveness. We need to have, people willing to lay aside ego and instead, it doesn't matter who gets the credit as long as the job gets done.
Well, it's going to be quite a challenge. And yes, Alison, we totally agree with you. Absolutely. But how sinister is this opponent that we have and this technology when one of the traits that Wi-Fi exposure brings out, as stated in Barry Trower's paper, is anger?
Yes, and that's why the cops and everything are so aggressive now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're being zapped.
Yeah.
And so on. So yes, but if we buy into the fear, which is the natural thing, right? It's natural to be afraid. And look at Barry Trower. He's had his life threatened 3 times to his face.
Yeah.
And, he was speaking in the Parliament of Wales, and he said, I would like to begin this talk by paying homage to the 8 scientists that committed suicide, and they were having huge success with their electromagnetic radiation targeting research they were doing, and they all burnt all their notes. The thing is that our minds can be controlled. All this type of thing can be controlled.
And one of those, I found it interesting. He was on his honeymoon and having a very happy time in life at that moment.
No, he was a week before his honeymoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like, but you see, the only way that this works is if we're afraid. If we're afraid to stand up. If the doctors are afraid to say something because the other doctors are going to look down on them. If we're afraid, that's the way they can muzzle us. That's the way they can keep it, so that people don't know about it. And like as Dr. Samuel Milham said, he said, it's the first thing, the very first step that you have to do is you have to become aware of what's going on, and then you have to start protecting yourself and your family.
But the key is being aware of what's going on. And Alison, you really helped with that with your interview with Barry Trower. And I am so happy that you and Barry took the gloves off and you approached this interview openly about how this technology is used as a weapon, and it is just absolutely a weapon. It's a weapon. It's a weapon. People need to understand this.
So, not just they. 11-year-old that knows how to use a microwave and a computer can do it.
Yeah, and that's right. And if it can be hacked into that easily, we literally have installed a massive, deadly neutron bomb type network throughout our nation that could be openly hacked and used by terrorists. It's not regulated. The people have no control over this. Our elected officials in Congress and the Senate, they don't have any control. There's no official organization that regulates it like they do the nuclear weapons program. If this is a serious weapon and people have no idea what is right under their nose, right in their backyard, This is a very important subject that you brought to light, Alison, and I thank you for it.
You know, they can hack you through your light bulb.
Yes.
That was the thing I was learning recently.
Yep.
So all these smart appliances, okay, that we're getting these smart homes where you can walk in and you can clap your hands and the lights go on, and you know, it can be set for timers and stuff so that your coffee gets made at a specific time and your temperature everything happens, you know, automatically in your home. Well, this is becoming very popular. These new homes, they don't even have the infrastructure to have a landline. The wiring isn't in the building.
Right.
And you look at India, where there's absolutely no money to make the infrastructure for phone lines, everybody's using a cell phone. Everybody.
AT&T has openly stated they're looking to phase out landlines completely over the next 5 to 10 years.
Look at what Google is doing. Look at what Zuckerberg from Facebook is doing. They're planning on putting balloons, having all these balloons traveling around all of the southern hemisphere.
And drones.
And drones and so on with Wi-Fi. So that Wi-Fi is going to be going everywhere, period.
And it'll be coming in along our power lines even more as well.
Mm-hmm. And then look at what it's doing, you know, where they're planning on doing these war games in Washington State,
yeah.
and so on. And they're going to be using microwave frequency weapons and so on, practicing with them. And this is in the Olympia Park and so on. I think that's the name of it. But, you know, these kind of things, this is really dangerous stuff. So now what's happening is they just made a correlation in the study. I mean, I think it's conclusive that the bee population is going down, and this was a particular area that they were doing the study in India, I believe. I can't remember the name of the town, but anyway, the area where they were doing it. But the bees are actually frying from the electromagnetic radiation. It is completely affecting their homing ability and so on.
Yeah, they get lost. They can't find their way back to the hive.
But this is a brand new study out that is pretty conclusive. Anyway, very interesting. And another thing is that there's somebody that I was talking to about the grid lines. Okay, so we have the Hartmann grid, we have another grid, and we have the Banks grid. And these are the Earth's grid lines that go along. And this is the thing that allows migrating birds to do their migrations and the bees to do their thing, and, you know, all this stuff happening. And these grid lines were not originally meant to be harmful to mankind. But now, because we've loaded the Earth with so much electromagnetic radiation from all our gadgets and everything, and the stray voltage that we're putting in from every transformer pole that has a wire going down into the ground, and all this electricity that's going into the Earth, it's now made these grid lines harmful to us. So when the grids cross, and you have to understand that these grids happen every 3 feet. One type, the Hartmann, I think it goes every 3 feet.
Yeah, and the human body and animals over millions of years have very precisely adapted to be in tune with these grid lines. And if you get out of tune just a teeny bit one way or the other, then it becomes not healthy but harmful. So yeah, Alison, you're right on with that.
And so where they cross, if you have an intersection of the 3 grid lines, it's absolutely deadly doo-doo right now. So you could have your bed over one of those grid lines. You could be, you know, where you sit and study could be over one, and so on. So, I mean, this is like something that wasn't there before. You know, it wasn't an issue, but now it's become an issue. And this is something that, you know, the scientists that I've been interviewing and researchers I've been interviewing and so on don't necessarily know about yet. Some are studying that area, some aren't. But you see, there's just so much. It's such a vast thing. We have gotten so out of sync. And the way I look at health and the way I work with the online coaching programs I do and so on, I look at us as a diamond. And every facet of the diamond needs to be polished so we can sparkle. Well, now we can take that same diamond as the earth, and every facet of that diamond is being bombarded by crap. And so are we. So is our little diamond. So, you know, just like in every aspect. So we really need to wake up and turn around now. These scientists are saying that this is the greatest, biggest health crisis that humanity has ever faced with this rollout of Wi-Fi in schools and so on. And Barry Trower was saying that, that's the reason he came out of retirement. And he's saying that this is, it's absolutely horrendous because the school is a learning environment, supposedly, and yet those frequencies that are in that wireless that's being rolled out in the schools, those frequencies are actually microwave weapons used to harm the brain. Okay? So there's a total disconnect there. A total disconnect. And in Simcoe County, in Ontario, Canada, they put out a very strong wireless, and what happened with that wireless there was that the students started to have heart attacks and need pacemakers. A student needed a pacemaker, and Magda Havas said, keep your child at home, get rid of the wireless in the house, and see what happens. He recovered.
Right.
And then we have in Los Angeles a school where a teacher just was awarded, and this was partially because of Curtis Bennett's work. Mm-hmm. Okay, she was awarded dispensation because of her high sensitivity, hypersensitivity to electromagnetic radiation, so that she can teach in a classroom without Wi-Fi. But she was talking and she was saying, I've got bleeders. Okay, I have students who are bleeding through the ears. I have students who are bleeding through the nose. These are symptoms of microwave sickness. These are symptoms of EHS, electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Now, in the court case where she was awarded her court case, Curtis Bennett was one of the people that was speaking, and he was saying, you have to look at the causation. Okay, what is actually supposedly protecting us, the code to protect us, is illegal. It's illegal because it's not taking into consideration all of the multiple sources of electromagnetic radiation and so on. And I mean, that's a huge topic, and that's a huge breakthrough. That's a very, very big breakthrough. If we look at it, in Canada, we have Safety Code 6. It's illegal. It's illegal, what we're doing and what we're putting into schools and so on. So if people could get together on that bandwagon.
And we're working on getting Curtis's report that he apparently put together for that deal there with the teacher at the LAUSD, because
I think I have it.
Oh, if you do, then we need to get that shared, okay. And that's very important, because if he established causality between the Wi-Fi and biologic effects, that is huge. That's a precedent. That is probably the most important information in the world at this moment. So if you have that report, we need to get that out.
Okay, I'll check and see. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just getting bombarded with so much information. It's unbelievable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that teacher, apparently the negotiations are going on as we speak, and they awarded her a Wi-Fi free classroom, and apparently she's now negotiating to make it a Wi-Fi free building. Because if you think about it, a classroom's not enough.
Exactly.
No, it's not. But a very interesting point that Ole Johansson makes, okay? And this interview hasn't aired yet, but one of the things is that because Sweden has recognized EHS as a disability, that has to extend to every country in the Commonwealth, every country in the United Nations that's part of the United Nations has to recognize that as a disability when that person travels. Because if you're blind and you need assistance and you get on a plane and you travel to another country, when you get off that plane, you still need assistance. You're no longer blind. So this is a very interesting concept.
That is really interesting.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah. And so, this is something that he said he hasn't had anybody try it out as an experiment yet. And, certainly it would be pretty tough to fly from Sweden to Vancouver, Canada, if you were EHS, because now the planes have Wi-Fi in them.
Wi-Fi in the planes.
Hello, any attorneys out there? Because the attorneys are going to be the ones that make the difference with this.
incidentally, Sam Milham said nothing's going to stop until they get their asses sued off.
That is
Absolutely.
exactly how it's going to work.
Yeah, those were exactly the words he used.
Right now, the money's on the other side, but that has got to shift. Once they see there's going to be money on this end of it, then it's going to change.
Oh, sure. Once there's a little crack in this.
Yeah.
It has to be class action.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, because the thing is, one individual can't afford to fight them. But smart meters are a huge, huge, huge problem, okay, in terms of security, in terms of all this stuff. And somebody was just telling me, oh, yeah, Australia, what is it, Brisbane and so on, NWS or whatever. Anyway.
That's New South Wales, I think.
Thank you, New South Wales. New South Wales has just made it so it's not mandatory to have a smart meter.
Ooh.
And like Victoria, they were rolling them out in Victoria, Australia, and people just are getting sick like dogs. And they had no way they could refuse them and stuff like that. So this is a huge one that just happened.
Excellent.
And so on. So, it's pretty fascinating. It really is fascinating. But, like, I don't consider myself an advocate. I really don't. I consider myself just a curious, concerned person. And so on. So, it's really interesting. I don't want to necessarily make my life crusade fighting the system,
None of us planned on having to do this.
Right.
It's in fact a burden.
It is.
Yeah.
But we're glad you're doing it.
I guess I am. Shoot. I didn't even notice,
You didn't even notice. Well, Alison, we're going to start to wrap up a bit here. If you could share with us your websites where folks can go, and I know you have a couple of them.
Oh. All right. Well, it depends on what you want to go to.
Well,
so I would definitely
share all.
highly recommend going to the EMF Summit.com. Okay, the EMF Summit. That's going on now. You won't have missed a thing, because I'm going to make those replays open again and stuff. So you're going to hear everything. But it's stuff you really, really, really want to hear. Your Vibrant Health Secrets is pretty fun, too. That's a different type of summit and so on. But I am covering a lot of stuff dealing with electromagnetic fields and so on in that, too. Sort of, things that, well, it's just interesting. There's a lot going on in that one. It's all about your body, soul, everything. And then you can find me, just Google me. I also have a website, thelongevityrescuer.com, but you Google me, you'll find me.
Excellent. And it's Alison, Alison, Heath, Heath. Yep.
Yeah. Alison, why don't you leave us with that one question that Barry Trower left you with on his interview? Do you remember what that was?
If you want to find the traitor in every government, in every Health Canada or whatever, FDA or whatever, start asking the question and say, now I'm not sure I'm going to get the wording right on this, but ask them what the safe level is for a pregnant woman in her first 100 days of pregnancy. What is the safe level of electromagnetic radiation? Ask them that. And not one person has been able to give him that answer in the 15 years he's been asking. Is that the question?
That's it. Yeah, it basically saying the ovarian follicles are not capable of handling any levels of electromagnetic radiation from Wi-Fi or cell phones. Just absolute zero, and there are no safe levels. I think that is really crucial.
And another thing that these experts are pointing out is that our government representatives are supposed to represent us. So you want to write to your MPs all the time. You want to, stir up the dirt. Make a fuss. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And these guys are not in on a plot, okay? These are just elected little reps for the local areas. Get them on the case. It's, the traitor up at the top that's causing the problem. But, if enough pressure is put on the elected MPs, they'll start doing something about it.
That's great advice.
Excellent advice. We need to start contacting our congressmen and senators as well.
Alison, you are awesome.
Thank you so much, Alison.
Well, listen, guys, thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone goes to the EMF Summit.
Me too.
We will send them there. Thank you.
All right, Alison. Well, God bless and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right, talk later. Well, thank you for joining us on Boil the Frog Slowly Radio. Please come back next week, and for more information, go to the website boilthefrogradio.com. And until next week, remember to practice safe phone.
Boil the frog slowly, you're a frog in a pot. Turn up the heat and things will get hot. Will you jump out or will you burn? Listen to the show and you will return to Boil the Frog slowly.